many times have you heard me bring up zombies or zombie-like individuals on this channel? Well, it's been quite a few times, but what if we dialed things back a bit? Back from super transforming mutants, back from Nazi multiverses, back from blood-spreading enraged infected, back from zombies that take 5 fucking shots to the head to kill, and back from the invincible brains-craving knockoffs. No, we're going all the way back to the origins of the modern zombie archetype. That's right, we're going back over half a century to the vision of a dystopic society besieged by the dead brought to life by George A. Romero. But despite his legacy and the groundwork he laid out with his Walking Ghouls, there's just something that has always pecked at my brain and bugged me about his universe and how it ended up the way it did. And that's why today's Why You Wouldn't Survive is a complete U-turn in terms of, well, survivability, and the series' first ever definitely that I'm definitely sure about. Today, we discuss The Coming to Get You, Barbara, the bleakest but realist ending to a zombie movie ever. If you are the godfather of the dead, you'll be the god of the dead in Call of Duty, a series more focused on the living and what the dead truly turned them into, the origin of gore that had 1960s Karens throwing a fit, corpses that rot by the minute but can rip your stomach open like a bag of chips, keep your chin up, or on at least, blueberry flavored zombies, the robot chicken theme, Luigi Mario and King Koopa get a rematch after 12 years.
You're Koopa? Well, you just said you were wrong.
An evil, egg-sucking son of a snake.
Did I lie?
Huh. You did. Oh my god. You are dead.
The inspiration for zombies to flock to malls for many games to come. Never try out the heart monitor in a zombie apocalypse. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And the commentary of the drolful zombie-like existence of us and humanity as a whole. Today, we are telling you why you definitely would survive Romero's Living Dead apocalypse. A series spanning 6 movies from Night all the way to Survival, supposedly 7 if Romero's son Cameron Romero completes the script left by his late father for a prequel to Night of the Living Dead called Rise of the Living Dead. It is speculated that the cause of this zombie outbreak spurred from a space probe that had orbited around Venus and began its descent back to Earth. Scientists working on the project detected high levels of unknown radiation being emitted from the device and advised military efforts to destroy the probe in case of any danger. However, this had only dispersed the radiation slowly but surely across the planet, starting from the eastern part of the United States, affecting any dead Homo sapiens with intact gray matter to come back from the dead. Although with the premise of Rise of the Living Dead, it is also possible the socio-political turmoil of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 led to a military-funded scientist named Dr. Ryan Cartwright to attempt some form or way to sustain human life in the case of a nuclear holocaust. So it is possible from 1962 to 1968 that Dr. Cartwright had studied this unknown radiation from Venus, knowing of its potential, and attempted to procure it for his research, only for miscommunication between US science and military teams to cause the Venus probe to spread the radiation or spaceborne virus instead of it being an isolated research study. Although many televangelists and religious believers had come to their own conclusion that this was merely divine punishment for the grand scale of sins committed by humanity.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Regardless, from there, it had only been a matter of time before zombies, or originally referred to as ghouls by Romero himself, had started cropping up sporadically from cemeteries to morgues and taking over entire townships and landscapes. Now, this series is the focal point of the modern zombie archetype. All the general characteristics, dangers, durabilities, and mannerisms of a typical zombie you have heard me go over time and time again. If you haven't, go check out my other videos, wink wink nudge nudge. Reanimated corpses that stiffly walk the earth, losing all semblance of who they once were, with only one goal in mind, of eating the flesh of a warm-bodied human, sometimes animals if available, despite having no active digestive system or nutritional needs. They're eating the flesh of the living for no apparent reason except instinct. Because of their reanimated state, the effects of their prior bodily injuries, and more so rigor mortis, have completely stiffened their bodies, where they walk around in a very restrictive manner, never being able to run or move at a semi-decent speed, as stated by the godfather of the dead himself.
Zombies cannot run. I say this definitively, as the grandfather or the godfather of zombies. Zombies cannot run. So anyone who has a zombie running, don't listen to that person. Their ankles would snap. I mean, what did they do? Go and join a spa the moment they rose from the dead? Give me a break. They're dead.
Their flesh begins to rot, much like any other corpse would. But due to this paranormal disease, the natural state of decay will be slowed down extremely. Typically, the flesh of a human corpse can take up to a year to fully decompose, while some sources have stated that these zombies can possibly last up to 10 to 12 years before they start rotting enough to fall to pieces, giving them a hellishly long longevity if allowed to exist. Even then, this decay would most likely only hinder their movement more, rather than killing them outright, disregarding the almost 40-year gap between Night of the Living Dead and Land of the Dead. They can withstand and basically shrug off any damage taken to any part of their body, from gunshots to the torso to their very limbs being amputated. Lacking the sense of pain, zombies can ignore detrimental sensations like muscle fatigue or potentially breaking their bones, allowing them to access feats of strength normal humans would need tons of working out and training to achieve, allowing them to easily dig their fingers into your flesh and disembowel you, or even completely rip your head off with their bare hands. Despite being seemingly impervious to damage and overtly strong, they can be brought down, with the only way of disposing them being the tried and true method of removing the head or destroying the brain to either immobilize or kill them. As long as their brain is intact, they can survive, to the point of being decapitated and existing as a talking head, still capable of biting and spreading the infection. They can and will retain full control of their body as long as the spinal cord remains as a connector between the body and head, allowing them to swing their heads around to surprise and attack unwary survivors. Of course, a zombie biting or scratching you will cause a viral infection to spread into your bloodstream, leading to a high fever, the body becoming cold, and the skin turning pale with multiple organ failure, and eventually shutting down your brain temporarily before reactivating the body to become a soldier for the ensuing zombie horde. Contrary to popular belief to what many may consider the only way for someone to become a zombie bite is not the solitary way for someone to turn undead, as anyone on Earth who dies that has been exposed to this spaceborne virus that has affected everyone can come back to life as long as no sufficient brain damage has been taken. Much like The Walking Dead that was inspired by this outbreak, you will come back within minutes of death if you are not properly cremated or your brain is destroyed. The zombies' mannerisms and activities can be considered animalistic, lacking mostly any kind of sentient intelligence, acting only to gather in large groups to mindlessly wander their environment, either groaning loudly or becoming whisper quiet for pluck, conveniently attacking people! Yeah, even Romero's not refraining from those jump scares. But hey, however, unlike walkers or infected who are a blank slate shambling across our world, Romero's zombies tend to be a little more complex, due to them retaining faint glimpses of their past lives, and will flock to major structures like malls and towns as they typically were places that they loved to go as living people. They will also cling to objects like telephones and try to mimic using them as a person would, grunting into the receiver, or even trying to use razors to try and shave their faces, or even riding escalators with some mixed results. Zombies can also learn to use crude and rudimentary weapons like bats, bricks, butcher knives, trowels, and jackhammers to either break through barricades, chop up survivors, or bludgeon living survivors. However, the basic use of these tools can either be an already known method for some zombies upon zombification, like the cemetery zombie, or something that they learn as they adapt to their new way of life and observe those around them. Like Big Daddy learning to use a jackhammer or even assault rifles as he pursues living people with his group. And he does teach other zombies that he's with how to use these assault rifles. Or Bub, who was placed under scientifically restrained studies of being taught to communicate and coexist with the living by Dr. Frankenstein. Only after being bribed with the flesh of dead survivors and even learning to fire a pistol in order to kill living people he deemed as a threat, something other zombies around him lacked any capacity of doing at that point. This idea that zombies can mentally evolve and learn from the world through trial and error or other zombies and people is not only fascinating for what is usually a one-note threat, but is also the Romero zombies' greatest point of danger besides their numbers and inhuman strength. While zombies at first acted primitively, banging against doors indefinitely, trying to get to survivors with no avail, or refraining from approaching any bodies of water for fear of drowning, or cowering away from or being completely distracted by the sight of fire. Besides all this, they can eventually, if given examples by other entities like scientists or other leader-minded zombies, work around these detrimental elements. Whatever countermeasures we as living survivors conjure up or assume will deter the zombies, like rivers and moats to prevent breaches to living strongholds, fireworks in the sky to catch the full attention of a horde as they simply just stare at the sky blankly long enough for survivors to easily slip away, or making bonfires to repel the dead, well, this will all eventually be worked around. Zombies plummeting into shallow rivers only to walk along the bottom to the other side, considering, well, they don't need to breathe, so the advent of a body of water shouldn't scare them all that much. Zombies ignoring fireworks as they adjust their priorities to continue their assault of the living, and fire, well, they just start disregarding it altogether over time since they really don't feel any pain whatsoever, and even eventually learning like a hamster or Bart Simpson with an electrified piece of cheese.
Zombie
has learned a valuable lesson. Beware the hand of man.
To eventually avoid electrified fencing. Basically, their capacity to learn will be an ever-pervasive game of chess with the living if a slightly intelligent zombie starts taking the helm for their dead brothers and sisters. They will learn through trial and error and become a more indomitable threat. Over time, many zombies could adapt to this way of evolving and thinking to better themselves for fights to come and their own survival in numbers. While dim-witted and slow through a majority of the series, zombies like Bub and Big Daddy had changed enough to seek more out of their existence than to just simply devour the flesh of the living, expressing emotion from anger and frustration over the deaths of their loved ones to genuine interest and intrigue over new prospects. These types of zombies can lead their zombie hordes to leave, even when the prospect of an easy meal is nearby. Now, the idea that they have a retained memory can also work to the extreme detriment of the living, as in the 1978 version of Dawn of the Dead, when Steven had turned in the elevator, once the doors opened, he went to the secret pathway in the back halls of the mall to surprise attack the hideaway of the remaining survivors. He had retained the knowledge of this secret pathway that looked like just another part of the wall, and broke through it so his zombie horde could get in. Meaning, even upon immediate death, will some zombies use their former memories to their and the zombie horde's advantage. So it comes down to them being overwhelming in numbers and existing long enough to have one or more zombies teach the majority to become more willing to use tools and less susceptible to the living's traps and defenses. While the advent of rotting could lead to them being a less of a threat over time, which is over a decade, their means of adaptation could very well make them a way more indomitable threat that uses long-range and durable tools to kill and outlive their living prey. But with all that said and done, the immediate threat of a zombie outbreak like this, or even anything similar to it, would not be an extinction level event like it is in Romero's expanded universe. Yes, the the idea of any recently deceased corpse or anything that dies coming back to life within minutes can cause massive rioting and countless further infections and deaths, mainly from sheer panic and confusion as people don't understand the situation at hand, and /or showing reluctance to attack and kill their turned family and friends. Even with all this factored in, I don't see these slow and dim-witted zombies lasting too long as a huge danger to humanity's survival. Frankly, besides the panic and chaos from the initial outbreak, while governments, militaries, and society in general comes to grips and terms with what this paranormal disease is, I don't see many dying to Romero's undead. During and after the first few months, zombies are going to be really easy prey to anything we can throw at them, and they are dumb enough to be repelled, killed, or distracted by many different means like pitfalls, traps, gunfire, actual fire, bombings, guns, and a lot of guns, melee weapons. There's a whole lot of ways to kill a zombie easily, and they're just gonna slowly walk up to you. Their disjointed roaming of the land in groups would be like shooting fish in a barrel for any capable gun owner. Hell, in the 1978 version of Dawn of the Dead, we get a happy-go-lucky compilation of armed civilians, rednecks, and US soldiers hanging out, drinking coffee as they go out hunting for any of them gosh darn undead creepers. The first two movies basically showed that armed resistance can easily and effectively take out any dead or infected threats as they slowly comb through areas. It is less plausible for society to turn into what happened in both Land of the Dead and Day of the Dead, where most of society has either resorted to living in bunkers or walled off cities, with the majority of the human population across the world already turned into the undead. It's more likely that once we have discovered the dead will always come back, that zombies will just be another part of everyday normality and turned into the ending of Shaun of the Dead. With the zombies either being easily eradicated, forced into remedial and restricted labor, or used as commodities, rather than this being the end of human civilization, something George A. Romero thoroughly enjoyed, so much so that he offered Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright roles in Land of the Dead, which you can see him right here. Isn't that so freaking cool?
What's happening, Simon?
We're going over to the main unit. We've been called. Shaun of the Dead guys to the main unit. Shaun of the Dead guys to the main unit. Get over there right now.
Them? Well, I haven't really worked with them yet, so...
We're having an absolutely wonderful time.
But back to the story at hand, yes, these zombies can learn and adapt over time while they slowly build their numbers. But honestly, that does take time, and with militarized efforts, they would be utterly decimated before their expansion and opportunities to learn could even be feasible. As I should have discussed 2 years ago on my Why You Would Probably Survive the Walking Dead virus, once this disease's rule set of the dead always coming back to life unless you destroy the brain, well, precautions, quarantines, and lockdowns would become staples until society adapts to this new way of life and death. But even more so after that. While the tradition of holding a funeral and transferring the body to a morgue for embalming will be mostly phased out for 100% cremation, hospitals, emergency responders, morgues, and more that frequently deal with dead people or dying people due to accidents, health-related issues, and terminal illnesses, we'll all adopt a new policy of quickly and definitely confirming a death before promptly driving some sort of sharp object into the skull of the deceased before turning. You will have to quickly determine if someone will come back. So basically, it's just going to be if anybody randomly dies, that is the most dangerous thing we're going to be facing. So what we're looking at is that the most danger that Romero's zombies would present in this newly formed society would be for people that would die suddenly or unexpectedly. Those that die in car wrecks, die of heart attacks or asphyxiation in their sleep, or many other reasons such as homicide, suicide, accidents, health-related issues, and more would cause a zombie to spawn in our world, and potentially attack and infect others that come near them. Car accidents, murder scenes, and just about any call to 911 would potentially, nay, immediately become quarantined for possible threat of zombie attack. People with cancer, hypertension, extremely high cholesterol, susceptibility to strokes, or any other potentially life-threatening conditions would have to be put into either intensive care portions of hospitals with heightened security, or have their homes equipped with zombie-proof locking and no windows in their bedroom. And if not for those precautions, other drastic measures could possibly be made by fearful individuals who would be so scared of unhealthy people being threats to societal continuity that at this point the fears of humanity could cause the executions of not optimally healthy people across the world for the fear that they may die and turn without fair warning. Honestly, the premise of our world wrangling in the dead and coexisting with these new rules would make for a very interesting concept for a movie or TV series outside of some romance bullshit. But instead of all that, we keep getting these zombie stories where we gloss over the military and capable human beings with weapons being completely overrun by these dumbass dead. I really don't get how like 95% of zombie stories, they're just like, oh yeah, the apocalypse is here. Military died off, a lot of people couldn't handle them. Doesn't make any sense. But anyways, in conclusion, unless you find yourself just completely surrounded by the dead in the very beginning of this outbreak, where they're around you in every direction, or have you pinned in an unescapable route like a room or basement where you simply just can't outrun them for a short time, I don't see you dying in any way. As long as you can bunker down somewhere for what I would say about a month or two, while armed people take out a large percentage of the zombie population and can handle using anything at your disposal to pop a brain or two. Although there are some people out there that wouldn't be able to handle seeing their loved ones turned and succumbing to them biting them. But as a whole, we as a species would learn and adapt to this new way of death not being a definitive end for our mortal shells. Just don't be dumb. Don't sit there screaming as they slowly approach you. Don't put your arm in a fucking heart monitor while surrounded. Don't put yourself in a place or situation where there's only one entrance to escape. And most importantly, don't get cocky or let your guard down in a zombie apocalypse, and you should be pretty damn fine. But the sad fact of the matter is, if these rules came into effect for our existence as human beings, if you are or know someone with a life-threatening condition when this breaks out, others around you could possibly seek to kill you out of fear of you turning at any moment. It's really dark to think, I know, but you know what? Humanity sucks. And well, that would be something Romero has always encapsulated with his narrative, and why he uses the zombies as more than a horror trope, but to discuss the true nature of mankind. So yeah, you'll survive and adapt today's Why You Wouldn't Survive scenario. I believe in you this time! So that about wraps up this classic look into Romero's universe and what the ramifications of the Venus-born space virus would do to us and society. Do you agree? What would you add or subtract from my equation? Did I ramble too much? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. This video is probably not going to get too many views because not a lot of people know too much on the Romero, but I love him and I had to make this video. I appreciate anything you have to say down below. I'll be taking a break from a video next week as I put together a bunch of other videos in preparation for my trip to Europe to finally see my girlfriend for the first time in 15 months because of all this COVID crap. So stick with me and more content will be hitting that subscription box soon, but only if you subscribe now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check out my other Why You Wouldn't Survives and more. And until next time, stay happy, stay unbitten, stay healthy, and stay wow, baby! Before they start rotting enough to fall to pieces. We're in a residential neighborhood. Why do so many people drive their fucking car like they have the tiniest dick? Does every motherfucker in this neighborhood have to have an engine that goes? Why does it have to be like fuck? God damn.